All right, I think that says I just went live. That's that. Let me unmute it. All right. There we go. I appear to be live. Is anyone here? Can anyone hear me? And I'm assuming Facebook goes live in 2 minutes. Okay. It always freaks me out because it tells me that I'm offline. God, Zoom with that stuff. I don't even know what you are. You go away. No, I must have cracked. No. Oh, that's a real drag. Hello, hello, hello. Great. Is the volume's good? Everything's okay? Cool. What's our lag? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 7 to 8 seconds. Okay. Let's hope it recovered that. Because I had a. Okay, good. It did recover. Got stuff on my nose. So it says that I'm offline and that I have no viewers. This could be true. All right. Fine. Okay. All right, so there's at least one person here. And I'm a wee bit early, aren't I? Yeah, no, we should just start now. All right, well, don't know what to say. It's you and me then, Crimson. Today, we're going to be discussing signet rings and some of the ways that we can use Boolean in generating things like signet rings, but I mean, we can use it for all kinds of stuff, making stamps and molds feasibly. But today we're going to go through some of the Boolean stuff. I hope that's something you want to see, because it's you and me, man. All right. Oh, there's someone else. Hey, hey. How we doing yet? All righty. So, Booleans and the use in, hey, oil, and the use of sort of like signet rings, insets. Yeah, there are a few of us now. At least there are a couple. That's really funny. The chat room here is not working. Chat room here is. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay. So we'll go through some just basic signet ring stuff, but we'll hop right into the Booleaning. That's why I have a bunch of stuff already pre-made, and we're just going to kind of use that. What we have here, simple block up. And then I also have, this was sort of this is old. This is sort of another, sort of a little thicker signet ring. A little thicker signet ring base, but it's old. But this gives us a good we'll smooth it out, and that gives us a good use for, there's plenty of depth there for insets is sort of my point. And that one's real similar. So good, we can use, let's go ahead and use this one. I think it's a better base. So there are two sort of signet rings. One's a little more like this, and then like the, oh, I got a lot of crap here. Where is it? There. And like this one, you can see what I did. I had the base block up, right? Oops, sorry. The base block up. Come on, base block up. and so I made a dome that I could dome to. And then what we did with it is brought this, where's that base? This is just like disappeared. Oh. Oh, interesting. This is a different version of the ring. There we go. There's the base. And then there's the part that we would bend to it. But we're just going to talk. See, this is a short. This here is short because it's mostly about this piece up here. And you can see that's not prepared for bold. This is not the greatest file in the world. I think this is probably still in polygroups. Yeah. So we can talk about prepping that in a second. Let us go back to this guy. And we need to see how big he is, because this is old. Brush, my brush, stroke, Z plugin. And let's tap that smooth so the smooth stronger on. Okay, sick. Everyone knows, right? So I want a box measurement on this. I have update size ratios here in my main menu because that comes up, and that gives me the box measurement for it. So actually, so a little small, but that's okay. It's probably a size 9. Let's just, what do we have here? Just some rough up in space. Oh, thank you. Lower res, lower res, lower res. Let's just get rid of this sculptural detail. This is another reason you want to keep your subtools or your subdivisions, and so you can come back in and do wonderful things like smooth out the detail that you put in that you don't like. Higher res, and you just kind of go over it again. Just step it up and smooth it out as you're stepping up. And you may say, oh, what a pain in the butt. But to be deadly honest, it's wonderful that it retains these details, because when you're trying to keep the detail, it's super helpful. All right, let's smooth it out. All right, so we're at 7 million. That's a good starting spot. Okay, and now how low does this go? Isn't that interesting? See how it's not showing my lines? This is a really old model. And it's interesting, the grid doesn't show up. Fascinating. All right, let's duplicate this. I can't. Z modeler. Wow, is that working? Delete higher. Interesting. I wonder if polyloop will work. I didn't think of having a huge issue with that. Alright, so that's okay. So I just took a band out where I'm going to use that as a structure since I can't really get it to do this, and we'll do this as a separate piece, right? So let's hide. Nope, split to parts. Go back here, let's come up. Z modeler. And it's interesting, it's still not projecting its lines. Interesting. You just take it, probably should be a little smaller. Move infinite XYZ. Are these moving? Oh, yeah. Okay. We're just going to try to line these up with the exterior point since there was a bevel in there I didn't want to keep. Looking okay. A little bit of a slightly roundier offy bevel there. Now let's just take a point, raise it up, and then we're going to drop that in there, and that's going to become an inset part for us. Let's make it just a little bigger. Alright. I'd rather have it a little bigger and knock it back than try to, because if it's thinner, this edge is going to curve in, and that's actually a more difficult thing to deal with at the end of the day. Hello, Joan. Okay, now we're going to divide. Oops. Keep smooth off for a second, divide. That's good enough. There we go. Alright, so this already has a subdivision level, so we are going to high-res this. How was it? It went to 7. Let's lower that res. Delete higher, delete lower. Come to here, duplicate, and delete lower. So we're just kind of working out the rough shape we want our signet to be. Okay. And now we have our lovely new remesh by union. Do we want to do that yet, though? Yeah, sure, whatever. Remesh by union. And now, under normal circumstances, since I'm going to want, we're going to drop that. Let's do this out. We can 425,000. Is that smoothing? Now, why am I getting nothing there? Okay. Oh, because I'm retarded, that's why. No use in remeshing by union if they're not on the same level. Sorry, skipped a part there. Duplicate, lower, lower, up. Is this higher res? Okay, nope, nope. Now we merge down. Okay, now we remesh by union. And that'll join those. So how are we doing, guys? Did everyone have a good weekend? Anything exciting and fun going on? I still show I'm offline. It's so weird. And that I have 0 viewers. Exciting. All right. And I hope that everyone has looked at the wheelchair challenge. That should be a good thing. No, for God's sake, that's the other thing. This is a big one, guys. When you're working on something, you're sitting here and you're scratching on it and you're doing it and you're like, why is it acting weird? Remember that if you have duplicated things, to turn those duplications off, because if you notice, it has been working. I just haven't noticed it. So that's a good upkeep suggestion. Just everyone remember that you have just duplicated models, so in turn, if you don't turn them off, it doesn't look like you're doing anything to them. I do that all the time, actually. Okay. So you can see that our union was good, right? But you still wind up with this scene. And that's where remesh by union early on usually is going to bring about a remesh for me. I'll duplicate it. I'll come back in W. I'm going to come in here. ZRemesher. And then I'm going to choose as small a poly count as I can. I bet we can get away with, let's try in that 400 range, because I want as many subdivisions as I can get. My milkshake is still a little. While we are waiting, I will hit the milkshake. And see, once again, you're like, oh, it looks so weird. It's because, there we go. Now, it's a little weird in there. You know what? I think I'm going to make these symmetrical. You see what it did, right? It added an extra quad on this side. So what we're going to do, just for the sake of symmetry, we are going to come into ZModeler. We are going to get rid of, well, let's just turn X off. We'll do it individually. ZModeler, delete that, delete that, and then all we need to do is put our draw size smaller there. Make sure, see how I'm readjusting it so that dot's sort of an airspace, just so I'm not accidentally hitting another point. See, that's pretty safe. Okay. And so now we're going to come in here. We're going to go stitch 2 points to midpoint. And we're going to go boop and boop. And that'll stitch that. Come over here. Make sure you're not hitting anything behind it. Boom. 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 There we go. So now that at least has symmetrical geometry, right? And so now what you can do is you mask off this side, because I like that side just a little better. Come over to deformation. Go Smart Resymmetry X. And now that has matched this geometry over here. Well, 99.53, so it's pretty close. Right, so now when we turn X back on, you can see we're hitting points. It's not saying, oh, no symmetry is found. So that's a quick and easy way to get your, ooh, something happened up here. Yeah, sometimes it's really funny. Smart resymmetry, you can see that it was trying to match this geometry, but this was far enough away that it got confused. So yeah, just smooth it all back down. It'll get you there, especially since we're going to futz with the center area a lot, so it doesn't matter. All right, so that's close enough for now. And now this way, when we start dividing, we have nice, clean, symmetrical geometry. I will say that this is not necessarily the most desirable thing, right? How we get this point here. And that might come back and haunt us a little later, but not too much caring about it right now. Actually, it's super easy to build. I will show you. Ask me later in the presentation, and I'd be happy to. I'll drag it over here. I just have to go get it and stuff. So it's simple. It's especially since the vacuum chambers are used a lot for oil production in the cannabis industry. It's easy to get a hold of the little vacuum chambers, and the UV lights and stuff aren't difficult to find. You can get it all on eBay or one of those things pretty easily. Okay, so what we have, right? We have our base of a signet ring. And now we're going to take this, and we've decided that someone wants, let's make it a Masonic ring, okay? And so we know that we can take, I have some Masonic stuff in here somewhere, okay. Here's our little 32nd degree eagle. Wow. Once again, this is a really old model. So you just free sculpted it, right, and you're happy with it. Now we're going to try to make this something that's going to lay onto the side. So the first thing we need to do is make it where it doesn't have undercuts, right? Because that's not going to do us any good. So we come to here, we look, and we go, I have group front right here. That's under polygroup menu. Under your polygroup menu, you have group front, right? I have it pulled out in my menu here because I use it a lot. Group front, and you'll notice the polygroup change, and as you'll notice, the back is a different polygroup, right? So we just turn this off, go to the front, tap it, and you'll see that everything that was an undercut is now gone, right? That's wasn't what the camera viewed from the front. So we mask this off, we tap it again, go to W, and let's just drag this back behind our farthest point, which is probably that tail. And this is a little proud for a side thing, but that's okay. And we just grab our little thing and pull it. Our little, I don't know, the square in the gizmo thing, that thing, whatever that thing's called. That rectangle in the gizmo. And we just pull it all back, right? So now you can see we have this. It has no undercuts. I usually tend to just take it, make sure you're in the, oh, we have X on, turn off X, go to the center, and usually I'll just enlarge it just a touch, and that just gives you a slight draft angle where the back is just a little bit fatter than the front. And that allows for a slightly easier release out of a moil. What do I use for heat? There's a little plate that you can buy. Let's get through this, and I'll gladly show you that later on. I'll show you all the parts and stuff. Right? And so you can see that we still have some weirdnesses, right? So I will come through, I will grab inflate, and I'm just going to quickly come in and turn on X. I'm going to quickly come in and just inflate things. Now, what's our count? 311? Yeah, we can do that. And you can see we're just kind of trying to come in and just fill our holes up a little. So when we do our next step, it turns this into just a big solid as opposed to having these air holes. Okay. You just run along the edge there, get everyone caught up, filled in. The surfaces just have to tap, right? They just have to barely touch. So when it doesn't, it's going to view that contact point as the filling point, if that makes any sense. All right. That's looking pretty good. All right. Come back out. Go to Gizmo. Come in. Oh, turn symmetry off. Go to Gizmo. Remesh by union. See, it's being crabby. No, it did it. Why did it say it didn't do it? Oh, it tried to do it. All right. Let's trim front. Because this was really messy, sometimes the Boolean doesn't like that much intersection stuff, like when you're using the inflate. It doesn't always give you grief, but sometimes it does. So let's just get everything smooth again. Because if worse comes to worse, you just have to, you can Dynamesh it as well. You can try Dynameshing. But we'll try the union just one more time. We're going to turn this on for smooth, and that's going to kind of clear up this edge a little where we had some weirdness. And this is a great place to use the Sculptris Pro, because these are noisy. I didn't turn symmetry back on. See how I am? Because a lot of this is overlapping noise, and the Sculptris Pro will get rid of a lot of that garbage. It's a really good clean up mesh tool. We're just going to waddle around this and try to solve some of these problems that it was kvetching about. Yeah, let's duplicate this. And we're actually going to go back some up here, just because if you notice, I wasn't being super concerned, and I kind of knocked down some of these edges. I didn't do anything that was, well, I got a little soft here. So let's undo this. All right, that's fine. And now we'll be able to project back to that, because I'm not going to be super careful about this, right? Because of the travel, there was a lot of it became a noisy mesh. And in the Boolean, it's just like, what do I do? So here we're just kind of coming in, we're going to clean up that mesh. You can see all this stuff that's overlapping. Unfortunately, ZBrush doesn't like coplanar surfaces. It's the one thing it really does not like, is coplanar stuff. And so that's using the Sculptris Pro as a smoothing tool, since this is just one shell, it'll get rid of a bunch of that crap. Normally you don't have to go through this much, it's just this was really noisy. See, there's a big hole there. I know when you start using Sculptris Pro, I'm sure that plenty of you run into these things here. Just have closed holes, and closed holes works really well. So whenever you run into that problem, you just slap close holes and it will do just that for you. I'm gonna color these edges. Make this a little bigger. That'll be a little more aggressive on these little creeper holes here that I created when I was just inflating. Alright, that should be pretty close. Let's look at it from the inside. You can see all those things, right? All this stuff right here. This is all the stuff that when you're doing your Boolean, because every single one of those feathers had undercuts and such, you can see how it's very noisy on the inside of the mesh. But we are going to see, this is an ugly noisy area here. I'm going to see how much of this I can get away with. And as you'll notice, in doing this, I'm not being super careful. So I'm smoothing out some of the design, and that's why we duplicated. And now this is going to leave a ton of noise in this too, but I'll show you the easy way to deal with that. All right. Flip it again. And let us Q or W, excuse me, turn symmetry off, remesh by union. It shouldn't have a, okay. So that's good, because that's what I want to show you. So we just Boolean this, right? Or grouped by union. And the thing about group by union, and something you need to get into the habit of doing when you're starting to use the Boolean tools, is that a lot of the Boolean tools are not necessarily like Dynamesh, in the sense of, if you Dynamesh, it eliminates everything inside the shell. It just gets rid of everything. But let's say remesh by union, right? So we're going to append this up here, just so I can ditch it. Append. And it was this guy, right? Yep. All right. Delete that. Okay. And so now, in any time you do Booleans that are fairly complex, with that many with that many surfaces that you'd probably get a blown up Dynamesh. If Union Mesh won't do it, then Dynamesh most of the time won't do it. It's just in that, hold on, let's go back to this guy, I'll show you. This guy. This guy, right? And so let's undo this. This is a very, very noisy mesh because of the feathers and stuff. Come on. Okay. Come on. There we go. So if you notice all of this stuff, right? Here, let's select this. Okay, because we'll just redo it, no big deal. See all of that noise because of all those feathers? So when that drags down, all of these things touching become like coplanar surfaces often. And so it's just easier to just do a quick clean, right? Hold on, show part. Because as you see, hold on, W, let's move this down. See how all of these things start laying on top of one another? So this is like worst case scenario you can get when you're trying to do this, because most of the time you're not going to have that much. Every single one of those laying on top of another is a coplanar surface. So, you know, when your Dynamesh blows up because there are coplanar surfaces, well, that's kind of what's happening. It's just like, oh, what the hell? And it just chokes out. It's just, ZBrush does not like coplanar surfaces. But, you know, and like I said, this sculpture is probably, oh my God, it's probably at least 4 or 5 years old. So I would build this a little differently now that because we weren't thinking about the tools we're using now then. So there are things I would do dramatically differently on this. But so here, let's flip this. And you can see just how much coplanar surface is going on in there. So yeah, you'll blow a Dynamesh up with this as well. And that's why it's just easier to come in, smooth it out just a touch. We did the union mesh, and now what you do, you split the parts. And this is all of the crap that it left inside that model, right? And so now you have all that split out. You just come back to your original part, append. Where's our little eagle? There it is. With 59 parts, right? Just get it. And now you have a clean shell, right? That has none of that. Let's flip it. See, it has none of that garbage in it. And we're going to reconstruct the mesh anyway because we want something that has a subdivision level. So we just come back down to the 58, right, and just delete all. Because we appended the clean model out of it, right? And so now that is a completely usable model. Flip it back. We're at 270,000. So this is where you can also kind of just kind of break your mesh down a little with, turn on X, sorry. And so I'll get a size that I like. I'm going to smooth it. And I'm using Sculptris Pro, as you notice, so we're just taking this out and I'm homogenizing this mesh a little. Because when I Z-remesh it, I don't want the Z-remesh to try to keep I don't want the Z-remesh to try to calculate like that fur and stuff. I want it to calculate the base shape. And so often when I'm trying to Z-remesh something, I will come back in, and this is where, like I said, the Sculptris Pro is really handy because it just come in. I just choose a big thing and smooth it down because I don't want it because ZRemesher will try to keep detail like key points, you know. And at this point, I don't want it to keep that. I want it to think of a nice, clean, smooth mesh. And once again, you see these holes that you blow into your meshes quite often with the Sculptors Pro close holes. I suggest pulling close holes out of your menu and throw it out here, because if you're going to use Sculptors Pro a lot, you're going to close a lot of holes. So we're just right, get it kind of smooth. Just make sure there are no things that it's really going to try to keep into the model that you're not going to keep in the projection. That's okay. Gizmo, turn off symmetry. Boom. ZRemesh by remesher. Remesh by ZRemesher. This probably isn't going to be enough, but let's try 436. We'll see what it does. Yeah, normally if Remesh by union fails, Dynamesh will blow it too. Even though it's funny, Dynamesh has become a lot more solid than it was. I don't know if they changed anything or not, but somehow or another I get less Dynamesh blowups. Yeah. It's not real symmetrical. Is there a way to fix that easily? I'm always looking to keep my symmetry, so we're pretty good here, actually. Dun, 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 dun. It might just be this square here. We're missing a row there, aren't we? Yeah, I don't think it's enough to worry about. All right, drop it. Divide, 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 divide. Get into, yeah, let's go 500,000 first. Turn on our original. And give it a projection try. This might get weird because it has all of the internal faces. Transparency, let's see what this does. Project. We're going to have issues inside the mouth, probably, and the talons. But once again, this isn't really the point of this, so I'm not going to cry about it too much. Alright, let's look and see what happened here. Oh my god, we had how many things on? Okay, you don't want a lot of things on when you're projecting. That could be part of our issue. Yeah, I had too many things on. Alright. No, we do not want that on. I'm just going to quickly, roughly smooth back in. See, because this was on as well, it projected to these flat areas. So make sure that you only have the thing you want to project to on. You can see we're already going to have an issue here. So you can come back in real quick and just play with your geometry a wee bit, just to make the projections a little cleaner. I will resist trying to it seems like it'd be very easy. Here, I'll show you. We might as well go through it. A lot of the inclination here is, okay, so I'm going to project, right? But we have places that are obviously outside of my normal projection range, okay? And so I don't mind that because I just do it in a couple of phases. I'm not racing through anything. I want my projections to be clean. Normally they're not this far off. Okay, and so now we hide this guy. Stop, that starts my problem. And you can see where there are issues, right? You're like, okay, these feathers aren't in. We have a little, these aren't filling in. And so now, under a normal circumstance, I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to smooth this out. Turn X on. Smooth this out. Take clay tubes. I'm going to have this on. Woo! That's big. Now let me turn this down. It gives me a little more smoothness down here. Oh, so I have pulled, because of the in dynamic, if you have dynamic selected, right, which is good now. I would never use dynamic before because of this exact issue. And that is, you have weird scale changes. Like dynamic only a lot, let's say, all right, here, look. So I have dynamic on. My dynamic brush scale is set to 0.02. My maximum brush size is 5,000. Now I use these as much as I use this because when you're in dynamic, here look, we're at all the way, this is as big as this brush will get at 0.02. You go to 1, and this is how big it'll get, right? But as you notice, when you're down here, and you're trying to make a small brush size change, often this becomes super weird. And so every once in a while, I'll come in here and I'll change my dynamic brush size so I can get really small, and you know, and I get really small. So how big is this, by the way? I don't know that I scaled this. This is an old model as well, so I don't know. Yeah, see, this is only 4 millimeters. So we have to take everybody. Go here, unmask that. W, select everybody. And we're going to scale it up a little, just so we have a little bit more area. But so I tend to just brush and creep up on my meshes, right? And so I'm here, and you'll also notice that it was kind of, wait, do I have dynamic on? No. Like our detail, right? Our detail is just not there in this one. Oh crap. Hold on, let's go back here. I was totally doing the wrong one. Okay. Come down to here, leave transparency on. Well, why didn't you come up with them? You big meanie. No, that's because something's masked. Funny. All right. So, normally I'll just come in here. Also, I was going to say, you see that just the detail isn't there because I'm doing this at a 500,000, where this, you know, probably has a 7. What is that? How high? There. Oh, I deleted. See, this is just a fallacy. This has been dynamized now, isn't it? Yeah, that's why this has the higher res and it's lower, because this was dynameshed. But this actually has more surface detail than the 300,000 can get evenly. And so, like I said, I'm not being super careful here. We'll drop that. Turn this back on. And I'll just come in and I'll literally just get everything sort of closer and smooth it out. And then when I project again, it will, we'll just work our way up to those projections, right? And you can see that that gets a little more in, right? You just tap it again and you just sort of come in and work it up. I find this gives you much cleaner projections because, let's clean this area out. Let's clean these areas up a little because I'm going to show you. So the initial response is usually, oh, well, just crank up the projection distance. Now, I'll go as high, like as 4, maybe 5, or 0.04 or 5. And I'll show you the problems we have when you start going bigger. And you can see that did most of it, right? But now you got to come back through this and really look, because what you'll start to see are these weird over projections, right? You can see here how the one side's projecting because this edge is within the projection range, and so it's trying to project to, so everybody remember that projections project to the negative normal. So it's trying to project to the inside of the mesh, right? It's taking the outside points of the projectee mesh to the negative normals of the projector mesh. And so when you just crank up that, when you just crank up the projection distance, you wind up with really weird happenings. Now, this is because I hadn't done the animation. Okay, I don't care. It's not really about this model. We were actually talking about other things. And you can come in here and you can see how all this is just super weird, right? Now, if we take that back down to 0.02, and so when you have these meshes or these points where you're trying to smooth them back and they just kind of hold, if you come over to under brush and you come under smooth brush modifiers and see this alt brush or minimum connection, if you take that down to 1, 99% of the time that solves that problem. Because if it's just a single point, it's looking for 3-point contacts, right, for the smoothing. But when you get all crappy meshed like this is, that solves a lot of those issues. Now I'm just going to come over. The other thing to think about when you're remeshing is, once again, ZBrush isn't super excited about coplanar surfaces, right? And sometimes that includes a projected surface. So if you're going to reproject, and I mean, you can make it less aggressive than that, but the thing you want to keep in mind is that if it's right on top of itself, like you have a successful projection, and then you reproject again, sometimes it starts to act really weird because it's already on that projection point, if that makes sense. So sometimes it squirrels out and does weird things. So that's just things to think about when projecting. I'm just kind of just pushing up the to fill some of that because I know that it's gonna. Those are trouble areas. The beaks were trouble areas. How are these doing? You can see that this is a problem here, right? I'm just going to use move because once again, this mesh really isn't the point of all of this, so I'm not going to be super crazy about it. All right, so now we're at point 2 again. Project. And that should get most everyone. Should be close. I'm still offline with no viewers. Bizarro. Bizarro. Okay. So, and you can see you want to, now, a lot of the issues we're having is just resolution, right? So here, we will go higher res. Yep. And see, these are those weird things that happen. Just knock that back some. And in tight places like that, I would still suggest, you know, you have your symmetry on, but look at both sides because of the projection, things may not be exactly symmetrical. Just come in, tap it until you see it, right? I know that's low. I'm just going to bring it out past what I know is going on there, and then just smooth it back. And that should all be within that projection distance. You can see I just want to get that edge and then smooth it back. Smooth it back, cut it back. And you can use your transparency to help you really guide this stuff. Now once again, where are we, 2 million? Okay. Hide it, and now look at obvious trouble spots again. And just kind of come in and fill them. You know, that's just, I think that's just noise because that is not a shell. Right. And now we're just going to do a quick, big smooth over it real quick. You can see our tips here are a little weird. I'm just filling them up. Let's turn this back on and see. Yeah. You can see that wasn't coming up to there. All right. And now, once again, turn that off. Just do a quick smooth. You don't want to be too aggressive. You just want to get that to where it's not going to be a perfect coplanar. Bring it out, project. And now we're projecting at over 2 million, so that should be pulling in plenty of that detail. I did happen to pick the noisiest model in the universe to show you that, but we're going to do it a couple more times with other things, and you'll see that it's not quite that arduous. Hello, hello. I can't even, it's a weird, oh, David. Oh, good. Well, at least we have some viewers. Yay for us. I was like 0. That just sucks. All right. You can see weird stray geometry from when I push that Where is that going? So when you find like little weirdo things like that, just try to figure out where the tip is. It's way down here. And try to get it. There it is. And yeah, see, it's still trying to project all those internal shells because that was a complicated shell. So this is not going to be a perfect projection, but that's okay. And now let's just smooth this out a touch. I'm just going to cut this crap off, trim front. Okay. So we have our little guy, we have our blade. We now take that, merge down. Where did my merge down go? Am I hallucinating? Oh, I have to go to the above. Merge down, okay. And now once again, we just come in, gizmo, boom, remesh by union. Okay, and so you can see that that's, oh, it didn't do it. Interesting. Nope, nope. One more time. Sometimes it doesn't take on the first time. It's funny. ZBrush by you. You can do it. The nice thing about remesh by union is that you notice the sword has a lot more geometry than the talons or than the bird. Okay. Oh, see, there we go. It's redoing. I must have pushed canceled last time because it's going to work its way through it here in a second. Yeah. Well, you know, it's the projections are a real important part of this because a lot of people will just move on to their meshing, you know. All right, fine. Fine, give it to me. Why are you saving that? Yeah, that's one of the, oh God, this might be doomed savings. These are real old models. Sometimes they don't even work in the newer version. Let's see. It looks like we have a scene there. Flip. Crimey. It's not doing it. It does not like that. I have a feeling that this is because of my older meshes. Sometimes these come in and they just blow up. That's super weird. Oh well. Once again, we'll do it on newer meshes, and I don't think we'll have these issues. Odd. Okay, let's flip. Because normally that's really consistent. But like I said, these are 6-year-old models that sometimes they come in and they're like, so yeah, okay. Oh, we didn't do our sword. Okay, well, good. We need to split the parts anyway. Oh, look, but it did do a lot of other crap in there, didn't it? All right, that's fine. Let's go to here. So once again, we need this to where it's not cutting back. Group front. We'll look at this again. See, that's one color, that's another. We will tap on the front, mask it, show part, bring this back down, W, bring our little line to where we want it to be, and then just drag this back and down. All right. And so now the other thing we're going to do is, this is a little steep for the side of a ring. It's a little deep, I think. Let's look before I make bold assertions as such. Yeah, that's 3 mil tall. Yeah, it's about 4 mil tall, so that's way thick for the side of a ring, right? Let us bring that up here. Merge down. Okay, so we have this groover. It does not have undercuts. Important. We're gonna come, let's just append it over to here. Where to go? It's from the side. Tricky. All right. How big is this? It's good, not bad. It's not the biggest men's ring in the world, but that's okay. All right, so now that we know we're going to use that, and let us come over here and append these guys together. Alright. So we have our squares and levels, right? Square. Nope. That's a specific square. Not what I'm looking for. Okay. We're just going to grab that, bring it down, make it bigger. So there you go. On the square and on the level. Let's merge these down. Merge down. Okay. You can do it. Wow, that's weird. It shouldn't be that crabby. Come on. All I'm doing is merging those down. Let's see. It should. We'll give it a second. I have a feeling this, like I said, this might be because I'm using those old models. You can do it. You can do it. Okay, we're not going to wait forever. It's saved recently. Sometimes I just find it easier to kill the friggin' thing. we just won't use, we'll use less older models. How's that? So sad. Everybody look at the magic wheelchair thing. Participate. Okay. Oh, dude, I swear, I kill my poor machine all the time. All right. Let's see. This is going to be an easy recall. Okay, let's see if this will work. This is also going to be super noisy. You know what? Let's just go back to man, where'd all this stuff go? All right, here we go. Okay. So let me split this to parts. Oh, should have, because this is a bunch of things stacked on top of one another. All right. So as you can see, we assembled this. Now we have, there we go. That's actually the background I chose. So let's get you up and out of the way. What are you? It's one of the little filigree things, I'm sure. Really, it's not even going to show up as a part? Okay. Well, oh, that's just a face. What is going on? All right. Sometimes things disappear. Don't really have answers for you. But I find that just turning edit off and turning it back on, and that usually will solve a lot of the issues. Okay, so now what we have, let's turn these guys off. Let's go to here. All right, so these are going to be on my filigree. Let's merge down, merge down, merge down, merge down. Okay, so that's the torque and the filigrees. This, if I'm not mistaken, is part of this sword. Yes, merge down. Okay, and now we have, that's that, that's the ring, that's the skull. Okay, so, so in preparation, we're going to, so here's the scenario, okay? You're making signet rings, and you're going to have a bunch of different sizes. And you have this nice, lovely form, but we're going to make a Boolean negative out of this. So we can apply this, because this is the logo for our company. Well, it's the logo for Blood and Iron. It's a Western martial arts school. And so we know that we're going to use this for a lot of different things, right? For pendants, for all kinds of stuff. And we're going to slam it on the inside of things. So we're going to have a positive, but we also need a negative to use for sort of inserting things and the such. So let's hide this. Let us hide this. And we are going to, that's that. All right. So we're going to get to a relative distance here, right? So let us group front, W. We're just going to pull to the back of that. We're going to say that's our depth. Oops. Sorry, the grouped front. Mask, flip. I want this stuff down here, right? So I line that line up to where I want my thickness to go, and I just pull this down. Boop. There we go. And now let's come to this guy. All right. Once again, group front. Boop. Turn on transparency. All right. And now drag this even with that. And drag. Boop. Drag again. There we go. That's okay. And now our next is the skull. All right, so the skull's already flat. That's good. Okay, so let's do this in stages. Come back here. Normally, I'm going to duplicate everything before I start doing this stuff, just because if something happens or if I need to reproject, I can. Once again, this model is not the point of this, so I'm not going to be super picky about this. So now we go remesh by union. Okay. Now let's flip it. And as you can see, there's some noise in there, a little noise. But it worked. You know, it did what it was supposed to do. So there we go. And then we're going to merge the skull down and in. Merge down. Okay. Going to do the same thing. Remesh by union. Did it refuse it? No. No, let's try it again. Flip. Sometimes I'm a little jumpy on that. Remesh by union. Come on, Sparky. As we wait. It's taking its sweet old time. It's never a good sign. Come on, you. What are you crying about? These are super easy. There's no reason this should be taking this long. Not small, but it's not huge. See this? What's funny is that this isn't what I wanted to show you. Yeah, I had no desire to show you that this is being squirrely. Today has not been a good computer day. Last night there was a upgrade that Microsoft snuck in, and it completely just screwed my stylus on my Mobile Studio Pro. I mean, to the point where it's not selecting, it's not working. I mean, my blood pressure is high. Oh, come on. Why are you doing this? This should be so easy. This is nothing. There's no overlaps. Why are you crying? Come on, escape. Is it a full moon? Is there something going on here? This is why I get 22 viewers. Because I don't show anyone anything. All right. Come on, you. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, it's doing something stupid. Let's try that again. I hope it might even be like this all night. Okay, 29 viewers. I still see 0. Mine still says 0. And I appreciate every single one of them, let me tell you. No, it was funny. We were just talking about Twitch viewership earlier today, and I was just like, holy cow, man. It just blows me away what people watch. I mean, there's this young woman who, I mean, she's adorable, you know, a young Asian girl. But she has like 5,000 people watching her and her friends play a card game. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand. I just don't understand. I don't get it. Okay. For Christ's sake. Split to similar parts. That should at least keep some of that group together. Oh, yeah, it's also a holiday. A lot of people are still coming back. No, I know. I'm just. It just. I don't get it. I don't. It's quite fascinating to me what people watch. But hey, whatever. I mean, whatever floats your boat. Let's just merge these together. I'm done. I'm done with all this nonsense. Let us hide that. We need those on, those on, those on. Let's turn hide that. Okay, okay. Don't hit that, turn that off. Let's come back to here. All right, so we know we're here. We know we don't want undercuts. I'm not going to Boolean match these together. I'm just going to do the undercut because my machine's acting squirrely. So a really easy way of going about. So you have all of these things open, right? But you know, do you want to merge them together? And this is how you can duplicate. Yeah, no, I mean, well, and just like the dude who, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the whole, I missed it. Maybe I'm like old, but the whole YouTube blogger idiots running around the world doing dumb shit who have literally, hundreds of millions of people. They're making millions of dollars doing nothing. That guy, that kid who, well, I guess he was a guy, whatever. The guy who went to Japan and filmed the suicide, and YouTube kind of cut him off. And they were talking about the month that he was suspended, he lost like $1.5 million or something like that. I mean, it was just, I couldn't, it just snapped my gourd. I was like, this is how you know that Rome is burning. That, that the amount of money that could literally pay for healthcare in America is being spent on some ding dong running around the world being an idiot. I mean, it just blows. I don't even have words to express it. It just blows me away. I'm like, holy cow. All right, so the easiest way to then in turn create a separate subtool that has everything you're working on, right? As opposed to merging all of these things, come down, merge visible, and see it creates a new, well, I guess that's it. No, where's merged? Really, am I just having one of these days? It says merge. Oh, hold on. Merge visible. There it is. Merged. Okay, I guess it just takes twice to do anything on my machine tonight. So now all of those are merged into one subtool, and we will, everybody's sort of where they're supposed to be, right? And now we will group front, tap on it, mask it, show part, go to W, make sure you're right, bring it down, and just pull. And now you have no undercuts. And I am now just going to take this and trim front just so we have a nice smooth back. Okay. Now I would say union mesh this, but for some reason my computer's acted squirrely and I have no desire to go through that again. And that was not straight. I'm like, well, what happened there? You have to make sure you snap to the front before you try that old trim front game. That was weird. All right, let's try that again. All right, so there we go. We have flat bar, flat back. Now, we're here. This, if you notice, is domed because they wanted an option of doming, right? So let us take that and let's append it to our merged. Right. And so if you want a dome, the best way to do it, drag this, come down, right? Make sure that you're just above the dome. W, no, that is not what I wanted to happen. There we go. Q, turn that off. Go to match. Start in the center at the high point and go out. And just keep dragging out. And you will see that it'll bend to your surface. But I said that I didn't particularly care for the bend because it bends the sword, and yes, you get a little bit more dynamics on the ring itself, you know, on the with the play of the ring, but the sword looks bent, and I mean that's kind of like um, the whole point, you know. Who wants a bent sword, right? Just saying. Oh, you want your sword there, and proud and stable. So we went with, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? I think it was this one, right? Ooh, yeah. And so we went with this sort of vein or ridged and a flat background that I then textured. But for right now, we're not going to do that. What we are trying for, let us go back to here, right? Does that make sense, guys? Like why we chose not to do that. Now, I am going to delete this. I just wanted to show you that you can do that, but sometimes you don't want to. It's a clever idea, but it didn't work. So let's delete that. Okay. And so we are going to, how big is this? All right, 3 is fine. And then we are going to append and plain W. Get down here, rotate it, make it big. That was real big. And then we just want to bring this guy. What are you doing? Just going to decide on the depth that I want. All our details there. Yes. So we now have this guy. Now we just take, I'm just going to use a cube. Open this down. Go to that, go here, come to cube. W. Make it like that. Make it like that. Turn on transparency so you can sort of see where you are. You don't want it super bigger. Now, I'm going to leave this out just a touch, and let me make sure we have, okay, we do have some. Now, what I'm going to do here, though, is we're going to drop this, and I'm going to insert some geometry, okay? Come on. Remodeling. Turn on X. And I'm just going to bring these lines out to where we are sort of covering all the bases on our frame, and then we're going to drop one in here, so that's like that, and that's like that, and that's like that. So we can isolate the interior surface, or the interior image, right? Because, slide, oh, that's it, there we go. Just give it a little room around everybody. All right, that's okay. And I'll show you why we'll need that in a bit. So we're going to take this W. I'm going to eliminate these. We'll do that in a minute. I don't want to be too deep about all this. Okay. Okay. And now Go back to the modeler. Let's get rid of these. Okay. All right. And so now we're just going to take this on top, start, Boolean negative, we'll hide that. We will turn these two things off. We will turn live Boolean on. And we have our negative. All right, so make Boolean mesh. Well, hello. How's it going? Sorry, I didn't see that. From Chile, awesome. Chile's nice. Good stuff. Spent a few days there with Tomas. All right. Oh my gosh. You are just giving me grief. Okay, so they kicked it out to this again, right? See how it's separated out? I always give it so basically what it's done, it's rejected this. It's like, oh, I can't do it. It's too confusing. But you notice it tried. So, and we still have our same preview. Every once in a while, just give it a shot and do it again. Because sometimes it's not either of these two meshes. It's something else in the series. Because if I had something else down here, but it's not turned on, sometimes it's looking at that as well. And so often it will work when you do it a second time, when it's removed all the other subtools out of the thing. If this doesn't work, I'm going to cry because I'm having absolutely no luck tonight. Boom. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So it worked that time. So something like this was down here, but it was turned off. So this is a plane, right? So it doesn't have a back. That is not a legitimate mesh. So union mesh looked down past it. And how you can stop that is you could just put start here and then it'll stop. Or you just take this and move it above the start, right? So why this rejected the first time is because it went down and then it saw this plane. The plane is only one normal, right? It's not three-dimensional, it literally is just a plane. So it didn't view that, so it kicked us out to this. And so often it will remove what the problems are, just run it again, and boop, now we have this. And so the point of this, that's not what I was doing, turn this back on, is, so now if, let's say, let's go back to this ring, and let us append that in. Boop. Right. W. Turn that off. Rotate that around. And we're going to rotate it this way. And then we're going to scale it down. And we're going to bring it over here. And so now, this is going to be the inset on a class ring, right? It's like, oh, well, I was in class, and look, I studied Western martial arts with them, so now that's going on my class ring. Well, that is kind of a crappy shape for this, and that's why I say isolate out the internal, so you can come back in here and turn on X. We want it to be Z, right? Is this not set up on our XZ axis? How is this oriented? Oh, well, that would explain a lot. Okay, we want that to be Y. There we go. Move points. You want it infinite X, Y, Z. And now we're just going to drag this out until it's sort of a complementary shape, right, with, and obviously if you were doing class rings, you would make this a wee bit more accurate by probably drawing a line on your model so you can see where a nice smooth curve happens. No. No, 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 no. And we'll drag this down. And we'll squeeze these in. Unmask everybody. Drop that. Let's put this stuff on. No. We're just kind of creeping up to that silhouette. And I'm going to say that I want a little tilt to it. So it's penetrating all the way. You can see how we realize that now. Let's undo that. Let's mask this off. And now we'll just rotate that in. You can see right here that it's just about there. Now it's penetrating the surface of the curve, right? Okay, everybody's there. Now, of course, you can come back here and let's I would mask everything but that just because you want it to be able to release, but so that's why I chose to do it like this. You can always unmask, come here, bend arc. Oh, I have to turn symmetry off for that. Bend arc, and you can kind of bend it in and rotate it. You know, you can play with your bends and stuff. I find in a case like this, because we have something that could pinch on the extract, it's just easier to tilt it in, kind of pull it in. Right. There we go. So now it's on the outside, it's there, boom. Okay, so now this becomes something that, let's go back to here, let's turn transparency off, let's turn that off, let's turn live Boolean on, let's make this start, let's make this a negative, boom. And so now you can see that you have that shape replicated in a plug. And obviously you tune up the shape a little better. But what's nice about this is that, so we come here, right? And in this guy, well, hold on. Where's our ring? Well, because we have this shaped. We've got here, append. We'll append the shape guy in, all right? And so frame, let's hide this, come to here, nope, come to here. Is like football players or teams or things like that, right? So we're here, and we are going to go brush, my brush, stroke, Z plugin. All right. Come to text, new text. Let's say 10. Enter. New text. 11. Enter. New text. 12. Enter. New text. 22. Enter. 26. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we got new text. J period S. Pluck. J S. Really? Come on. J S. Enter. New text. B D. New text. S W. New text. K L. All right. And now we go, okay, JS was 10, BD was 11, SW was 12, KL was 22, and duplicate KL's copy was 26. All right. So you now have these sets. Now, unfortunately, this is situated in the wrong direction because of our dingling surface, but what we do, W. Now remember, when you tap on a surface, I have to go to that surface. So when you tap on a surface, right, I've tapped here, you'll notice what it did. It's parallel to that face. So I want to take an angled face and make it 90 degrees to my plane. Boop. And there we go. It's 90 degrees. It's now facing kind of not the right direction. Killing me here. And let's go to center. And let's go home. Okay, that's a little better. And we'll do that. We should, no. You have to hold down before you do that. Okay. Normally, if you are rendering to keyshot, remember that this is your axis. If you hold down, hit Shift, or hold down Alt, hit the orient. Your orientation is blue is pointing towards the camera, red is off to the left, and the green is pointing up. So this is front as far as keyshot is concerned. So now we'll rotate this around 180, come on. We will flip this around 180, there we go. And we're going to pull this back just so we can see our letters. And let us hide this. Nope. Let's just go to 10. All right, so that's the right size. So now I'm going to do a mass change here. Since we have all those guys and these are the only two, we just hide the, go back to 10, hide these. And I just want a rough idea. So those are about twice as big as I really want them. So hide this again. Turn this onto everybody and drag it down. Come on. And just double check. You're like, okay, hold on. Let's drag these up here and let's just. All right. Probably want it a little bigger. All right. Now I'm going to bring them back to home real quick. Oops. Isn't that funny? They don't want to move to home together. Okay. Then we won't do that. That's close enough. Now the other thing I want is I need some thickness. So I'm just going to thicken these things up. All right. And so now what we're going to do is go, let me get a rough idea about down there. Well, we can move them again in bulk in a minute. I just want, so turn that off. 10 JS over here. And so we can, oh, actually that's pretty close. And this is how I just check to make sure they're, there we go. All right, so let's check this actually. That's that. So these really sit there. Okay. Okay. And so now I'll just run down the line. 11 BD. SW 22 KL. Like I said, if you're actually doing this for production, you'd probably like have a grid laid out so you can see it or something, but just trying to get a point across here. We have 26 KL. All right. So now let's come back to here. Okay, so we will want to do this. Okay. And you'd probably want to get your letters a little bit more to that scale, but don't care. All right, so the thing that we have to remember though is that this is a negative, right? Right now we're looking at these in positive, so let's go hold down that, go to home, and we are going to turn that off. We're going to rotate all these buggers to be a 180, right? Because we need them to be negative, so when it presses, it'll be positive. And turn that off. Let's slide this way a touch. All right, close enough to spit on. And now let's turn on transparency and just see what our depth is. Okay, we're going to want a little bit more than that. Yeah. All right, that's going to be more than deep enough. Normally, you don't want your depth to be more than the thickness. Like if it's a millimeter wide, you usually want about a millimeter deep. Keep it even. Otherwise, you get like these little centers of A's and stuff, and they'll snap off in the molding process. All right, so now you have all these guys, right? So this is a super easy way to make really custom, like if you have things that are changing, right? Like a player's name. So you go start, and we'll just do, let's turn everybody off, turn this, no, turn everybody off, turn start off, turn that on. Now turn start. And now we just bring 10 and JS on, right? We turn off transparency. Nope, we have to make all of these negatives. So they will cut in. Right. So now you have one JS. All you do, make Boolean mesh. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah. And so I'm assuming that's our mesh, right? And so now that is JS01. And so we have the same shape plug, the same size plug, and now it's coming in and you can customize each of the cutters, right? So now you come here, you turn these off, you turn these on, make Boolean mesh. And I don't know if any of you have ever tried to do class rings that are customizable. This is a godsend, without a doubt. Saving file. So you can see how you can now make insets that are customizable, and you can just churn through that, right? You just get it going, and it's super good. And then, you know, obviously you'd come in and label them, but, you know, you could see how that becomes. Oh, that's right. You know what? Thank you. That's a good point. When you're, yeah, that was me just being flaky. I totally know that. So when you're here, what they were saying is that if you have subtools that are masked, so let's mask this, right? And remember when I was down here and we had all of these on, you know, let's turn all, we had all these and I was repositioning stuff. That's so funny. I was doing this earlier today. Sorry, I've been having so many problems with the computer. I just get distracted very easily. So what the point is that remember how I was turning this on and off to see the positioning? Well, all right. So we have our letters. Go to W, center it to go here, and now see how we can move these. I can scale them, and it's not moving this, and that's just because this is masked. That's another thing when you're doing this and like you're going and you leave one behind, go back, unmask it. 99% of the time it's about that masking. Thanks. Sorry, that was a little sloppy on my part. My brain's reeling because nothing I've shown worked so far, so I was just trying to get to this point. But you can see how this can turn into very easy ways of generating the same thing as an inset, and it just goes quickly. It's super nice. Very good way of sorting things out. Okay, so, you know, once again, you have an image, group front, mask it, W, go to your lowest point, pull down, no undercuts. Now this has been Dynameshed. But you can see that feathers and these undercuts and stuff, these make some very difficult meshes. And so that's where sometimes you just want to do it in steps, like do the heads and stuff and then bring them back in and redo it. But here again, we have this. You just take your little doogie, append the cube, turn that off for God's sakes. Nope, wrong one. Make sure you select your cube. No, that's funny. Is it this one? Nope. Is it this one? Nope. Is it this one? Yep. No. Now, remember when I was here and I was saying, oh, well, it's easier to do this curve? That is because we don't want undercuts, right? So when we come back to, oh goodness, is that one? Yeah. When we come to here, let us bring that up. Start, negative. You have your little guy straight, right? Make Boolean mesh. It might be crabby about this because there are lots of holes in that. Keep your fingers crossed. Is it thinking? Did it just reject that? Hmm? Not seeing a whole lot of coplanar. That's the other thing. If you check show coplanar, you can see that there's a little coplanar there. There's a little bit coplanar in there. That's not a real big deal. I think it's probably this stuff right here that's grabbing about. This is a crap mesh, right? Because of these air holes, right? So it's going to view those as air holes. So I have a feeling that's our problem. But let's see. Make Boolean. Did you see mesh coming? Okay, so there it is again. Start, cutter. Okay. Come on. It's probably going to say there were issues. And that's why earlier I showed you like going in and blowing out all that stuff. It's thinking about something. Did it make the mesh? Oh, there it is. Okay, so it made it. Crabbed about a little. Now, this is the other thing I strongly suggest when you're using Booleans, okay? If you notice, if we rotate this around a little, see all this garbage? That's all that garbage that was floating around in there, right? And so, unlike Dynamesh, it doesn't get rid of that crap. So, almost always after Boolean something, I mean, if you're just Booleaning a circle in there or something, who cares? You're probably fine. But when you're doing complicated Booleans like this, I will always split two parts. Any guesses on how many parts? Guesses before I push. Come on, guess. I'm guessing 120. Anybody else have any guesses? Oh, you're all no fun. Split parts. Okay. Where are we? Hmm. 196. No, 196 parts. Right, exactly. So now all those are split out. We just go to a star, whatever, append, 194, we click that, boop. And now we have our mesh, it's clean. All that garbage is gone. Come back there, delete all, okie dokie. And now you have, delete, okay. Now you have your logo. So, you know, you can see how this is a really wonderful way of, you know, getting to a point where you got this. Now, another sort of interesting thing, oh, look at that. Yeah, this was super crappy. Look at that undercut there. That's why, as I said earlier, cleaning up that mesh often helps. But another way of working on these is now you flip. Come on, flip. Why is it not flipping? Flip. Really? Flip. There we go. And so you can come back in here, and now with, all right, let's just do a standard. And let's say they wanted, really you just, why are you giving me grief here? Oh, no, I don't know. That was acting weird. All right, well. So like if you need to come in and then in turn like put, oh really? Okay, so with that little geometry, it's a little persnickety. Come in and smooth your geometry in a little. With only one polygon there, it wasn't doing what we wanted it to do. But let's say you then have to come in and sculpt something else. You can come in, give yourself some geo. And this is really what I consider the power of the Sculptris Pro, is you can come back into your mesh after it's decimated. You don't have to worry about going all the way back, dynameshing, coming back, dynameshing, coming back. In here, you can now come in and sculpt, you know, whatever little diggly wigs you need. Let's see. And then we can come on. There you go. Hook to window. Yeah. Oops. Let's say you want it centered around the cross. And so now you come in and make yourself a little ropey thing or something. I didn't smooth over that part of it. But you get the idea. So now, like if you have a change, you come back, do it here on the flip, so you can see a positive. You get nice and detailed as you want. And now you have this addition to it, you know, whatever it is. Oh, we didn't smooth that, did we? We keep trying to do that. Nope. Just come back in. Smooth your geometry in there. And now, and you could continue circling and then your little dot. All right. And then flip it. Woo. Drew my mouse. And now you have a negative again. And if you ever want to check and see what your stamp is looking like, just turn it over, flip it, and that's what your positive is looking like. And flip. And so these are really super easy ways of starting to develop nice repeatable pieces that you can use as insets and the such, because you know you can have the part in positive and let us go back. All right, now let me delete that guy. Because you know you can go here, come to alpha, go here, and say make three, or grab dock. And now you have an alpha of that, right? And so now, if you were doing something positive, nope, nope. Start crap off. Draw some. Drag. Let's say. Mark your center line. Often you just need to know where to start. Just put a little spot. Go, where was that? Was that this one? Yeah. Turn X off. Drag. And now you notice how it's getting soft on the edges, right? See how the line's sort of disappearing. So that's because of the focal shift or the fall off. So come here, turn focal shift to -100, and now when we do the same thing, you can see that you have, once again, you probably need more geometry in this area. And that, once again, is another beautiful thing about, if we know we're going to put this here eventually, we've done all our things. We have, right, this has a lot of geometry on it. So we've punched this side, right? And we know that we're going to want positive on this side. I know, it's not for good design, but, well, you can, yeah, without a doubt. And honestly, for something like this, though, well, it depends on how often you're going to use it. I mean, if you're just doing one quick thing, oh, Origin. Yeah, I have an Origin computer, so I still have my shirt. If only I could get them to sponsor me. No one sponsors digital sculptors yet. They'll give gamers anything, but man, I guess they'd be like, you don't have 5,000 people watching you play cards. You don't deserve a machine. I've been working with Puget Systems, or talking to them, trying to get some systems set up, like, so through my new courses and stuff, we can have bundles where you get the computer, the printer, and you know, in like 3 or 4 different scaled for Christ's sake, you know what I'm talking about. Packages, that's the word I was looking for. All right, so if, and yes, you can go to Alpha, go to Brush, to Mesh, or Alpha. Christ, my eyes are killing me. Sorry, guys. I'm a mess right now, aren't I? The thing about the chisel brushes is let us, actually, you know what, we could probably just use this, if I'm not mistaken. Let's give this a shot. So we go append, plane, no, that's not what I was trying to do. I just appended the same thing. Ah, goodness gracious. Append, plane, come to plane, turn on transparency. Okay, there's my plane. All right. Now the thing to remember is don't change the scale of your plane. I did that the other night, and for some reason it was being really dramatically painful to me. All right, so let us go back to you, and we're going to turn X off and scale you down a little bit. Where'd tool go? And back to plane. Now, this seems like this is going to work, doesn't it? Like if we're going to project to this. But that's a positive. Here, let's see. This is a positive normal, right? So if we're projecting to that, I don't think this is going to work. All right, we just projected, and it did oh, we have no geometry. Sorry. So I'm like, let's go up, but let's lower res. Let's start our projection there. And so if we project all, you think it's going to project up into that, right? It's not, because it is projecting to I was going to leave a little. I'm a mess right now. When everything starts failing, you just ugh. So, did you see what happened there? Okay, hold on. Let's go back a couple. Did you see how our plane, right? See how it tried to project, but it didn't? It's because, remember what I said earlier, projection is trying to project to the negative normals. So we flip this, right? And now watch what happens. Let's bring this up just a touch so we're right there, right? And so now when we project, see how much longer it's thinking. It tries to get up in there, right? You can see it's projecting to what it can. Its projection distance is a lot less than that. And now we can try undo. Don't just reproject because it gets weird. Undo, there we go. Like you can try to kick up your projection distance. And on something this clean and flat, it might do some. Get us a little farther than we were. Right? That didn't be bad, actually. Look at that. So you can see where it needs to come up. Drop that. Okay. Lower the res a little. Let's use clay build up so it comes a little quicker. We just want to get this stuff up and in a little more. Smooth everybody down. Shut back on. Alright, let's close. Project off. And because we don't have a lot of weird pinchies, that projection worked okay. But you can see how here in the crown area, oops, and see how it's like pulling all this up. So this is when you need to, one, smooth some of this down. Remember what I said, you don't want it to be coplanar again. You can turn your smooth down if you want, but you can also just do it really lightly. Okay. And now let's see what's going on there. We need cut that back. Let's kind of get us in the right area. It should. And now we're going to go higher res. And we're going to lower this down to 0.0. Yeah, that's close enough. And now we reproject again. Right, close enough to spit on. We then mask this groover off. Don't have a full circle here, but that's okay. Well, here, let's just do that. Okay. I like my masking to have a sharper edge. Oops. There we go. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Go to deformation. Morph to grid. Did we move the damn grid? Bugger. We got off center. W. X. X off. Center. Center. There we go. And we'll just. Nope, that's not the answer. Q. Ah. When you morph the grid, it really doesn't want you to move that thing. It's like, And we wait for it to save. You can do it. There you go. Water break. Stop that. Move the grid. No, cripes. Right. You really don't want to move your grid once you start this game. Okay, there. Close enough to spit on. Goodness gracious. Pain in the butt. So you can, come back in and get this onto a mesh, but you have to remember the whole thing about the VDM, vector displacement map, is that it has to be on a clean grid, and it really can't futz around with that grid, or you wind up having weird things. We'll see if this actually converts to the brush, or does it just turn into the weird goofy thing that it could turn into if this is all moved. Alright, close enough spit on. We're going to call that great. Go to chisel. Go to brush. Go to brush. From mesh. There we go. And now you have, yes, you can now use your chisel brush. There we go. But even here you can see that, well, the other didn't have a ton of detail, but this is another really good usage for your what's that thing? Sculptris Pro. Goodness gracious. So let's say you know that you're going to want this, you want this cut in. So let's just make one with the cut in, just so I can show you. No, we do it before the cut in. This was at 5 million because we have sculpture up here. Okay, there's a reason that we're at 5 million. And you have your sculpture. Let's here, and it's like, okay, so you have all this great sculpture, but now you want to do your side, right? And you just don't have the mesh, right? Even at 5 million, you can see your tessellating and this and that. So the remember to put backface masking on when you do that. Right, so you've done a lot of work on this ring, you've made it this far, but you just don't have the geometry to do it. And you know that you're heading into, woo! I might get a free computer yet. But you know that you want to keep your detail, but you're not going to sculpt on the rest. You're now trying to do something in this vein, but you don't have the geometry here, right? So this is where, what's my custom set to? It should be 500. Decimation master custom is 500. Okay, so I find that 500 is 500,000 polys will retain most detail. So just come in, I just tap it, and it's going to decimate this. This is another tool I use quite often, actually, as I'm working along and I still want to use my pools and my distortion tools. I'll decimate and then just use the Sculptris Pro tools, decimate, use the Sculptris Pro tools. Then I'll usually have the base model that I had originally in the high quad model. I'll project it, and then that'll let me have some of the benefits of the other tools. It's just sort of a back and forth thing. It really depends on how you're crafting your part. And it will one day decide that it's going to Dynamesh this. While we're waiting on this Dynamesh, actually, let me grab this. Actually, we can go online. While it's thinking. Come on, you can do it. What do they call them? Vacuum chamber. So these are the kits, right? And the problem with the pots is that they're not clear, right? So you can't really get a good UV bath on it. Oh, sorry, for people who weren't here, someone asked me earlier about how I built my heated vacuum UV curing chamber. So on our big one, what we did is we just ordered a 400 mil by 300 mil, like centimeter plexi tube, and then I just got a plate with silicone on the bottom, and then this has the silicone on top of it blast, and then we just covered it with UV lights. But for most of the jewelry, you can get away with, come on, where are you? These are the big ones. Come on. Okay, see these? That one is, no, that's not. They have them that are glass. Why am I nuts? Okay, that one's glass. You see how it's Pyrex? Mine's a cube, a square one. But something in this vein that, come on, where you got it? Well, you're just going to be like that. Let's put Pyrex in here. All right, there we go. So you can see that this is glass, right? That's your vacuum chamber. There's your vacuum pump. And then I just put LEDs around the outside of this and covered in aluminum foil. Covered this in aluminum foil. And then they have come on, heating pad. Oh, there you go. Right, so this little orange groover here, that's your heating element. You just put it on the top, it has a couple, or on the bottom, it has a couple standoffs that sits on it. And then that's your vacuum chamber, or your vacuum pump. That's a weird little vacuum pump. You put the pad on, you put aluminum foil on the bottom, you aluminum foil the outside with LEDs on the inside, aluminum foil on top, and then you want like a little Pyrex standoff so your part's not sitting on the glass with the heating, it's sitting above the glass. And yeah, there you go. For, you know, $310, you can have a little curing chamber. That's a little small, but mine's a square one that's a little bigger. eBay. I think that that this chamber is a little small. Does it give me the size? These are round. This company, the same company who makes this, they make a best value max. Let's do that. Yeah, see, I think that's the one that I have. Yeah, it's nice to have one of these. So in Spain, I have a big one, and then this is just a big plexi tube, and then it has, let's see. Oh, these are colored. You need to get one that lets UV through. It's just a display plexi, but you have to make sure that it lets UV through your toes. 2 centimeters already. That's not it. You get the idea. Oh, yes, that's not what I wanted. But I think the piece of plexi was, I think, like 85, $90. And then you just need to get a silicone gasket and a aluminum plate that's, if you're hey, how we doing? If you're doing a 300 millimeter, which I believe is what this chamber was, if I'm not mistaken, because we got a big one. If you're doing a 300 millimeter tube, make sure to get a 450 millimeter circle cut aluminum plate, because you don't want the first one we did. First one I did, I had this was 300 mil, and then the plate was like 300 mil too. And so there was only like a 5 mil plate. Well, it wasn't quite a centimeter thick. So it's really, I guess, like 5 mil thick. And the vacuum chamber was there, and all of a sudden we just heard boom! And it's the tube had enough flex that it got flipped up in it, and then it sucked it up, and it just blew the tube out. Yeah, you want a bigger plate. What is that? Oh, is it still cleaning? Am I still chopping? Oh, crap. I hate it when it does this. Sometimes my CPU jams it checks it out. Webcam's down now? But we're not doing anything. It's over. Oh, give it a second. Maybe we had an 8-second. It's fine, but everything else is torque. Is it still torque? My CPU's done nothing again. Give me feedback. Are we still frozen? Yep, sure. Well, I guess I can. Is it still trapped? Okay, so I'm going to just in the stream start it real quick. Let's see if that's up.